I'm calling the meeting of the Newburgh-Dundee Public Schools Budget Committee meeting to order at 6 o'clock. So we have, do I do the agenda? Okay. So there is we've got our meeting minutes. Everybody have that? Do we have a motion to approve the April 15th minutes?
I move to approve the April 15th meeting minutes.
Second. I second the motion.
Okay. Questions? Any questions on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we do have an amendment to the agenda. At this time, we're gonna ask for public comments. Do I need to do a motion to amend?
Yeah.
Okay. So do I have a motion to amend the agenda to add public comments at this time?
I move that we amend the agenda to include public comment at this time.
Second.
Any questions? Fantastic. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries. All right, so I'd like to open up at this time for any public comments. Okay. With no comments at this time, we will move on to the next item. It's Dave Parker.
And Nate will
And Nate.
start.
Perfect.
Welcome, y'all. And of course, my computer froze right when. Oh, nice. We're starting. So we're going to start out kind of going through the question and answers that we started with, or that we sent out preliminarily. Oh, start the presentation.
Oh, yeah. They're not showing their video feed, so that's why they're not showing up.
No, the presentation. There you go. That's the one. See, let's do a little warm up first, and then I'll reset. Oh man. Can you make it present again? So first of all, we just thought we'd do a little warm up here. First of all, learn a little bit about each other. So grab an elbow partner, and I want you to tell your partner where you attended school, whether it's in-state or out-of-state, just so we can get a picture of where you're from. And then just thinking about what you saw in school, what's the most expensive pieces of equipment that you recall when you were in school? Okay, so let's just take a couple of minutes here and
I think it's just because people aren't talking close enough to it, so they hear it.
All right. So about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I just took that into that. What's that? All right. So now you guys know a little bit more about each other. Would just a few people want to share out what they learned about their elbow partner? Make sure and turn on your microphone. I'm curious about a few if I wonder who's going to share.
I'll share.
Okay.
I'll talk about Kim. She went to high school in Aloha. Some kind of crazy story about cutting a hole in the wall to create a window to move bleachers, the risers from band. But we think that the most expensive equipment was her band uniform
Oh.
because they got new band uniforms and a new oven that year.
Ooh,
So maybe those are the two that Kim was talking about.
nice. Who else wants to share some interesting piece?
This young man here is from Newburgh and actually went to Newburgh High School, which, wow. So I told him I was jealous that he had this type of roots in his background. That's pretty wonderful. And the most expensive piece of equipment was probably his iMac. So, I went to school so long ago that mine was actually a calculator. Very good.
Anybody
I
else?
sat here by Greg Costello and he went to Clackamas High School. And he said he was in high school when they got the first Apple IIe's, which would have been very expensive at that point.
All right. Anybody else? Last chance? Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing with each other. So let's get right to it, shall we? So the next thing. Oh, so here's our agenda. So we did our warm up. We're going to go over the information. And then, oh, thank you. I'm doing, it's not advancing. You got to move your mouse on the side. There you go. And then, so of the information, we're going to go over kind of a little bit about the plan, I call it on the slides. We're going to go over the responses to the questions that you guys proposed, changes to the proposed budget based on the questions and feedback. Hopefully approve the amended proposed budget. And then part of that approval would be also recommending the tax and levy rates, which is part of that as well. So it's a short slide for a lot of information. So in the information that we kind of pre-sent out, some of the changes based on our discussion last time was we added back an additional day, and that adjusted over 1,700 lines of our budget. We talked about revising the FTE counts, which is going to be included in the adopted document, the final document. So we revised that. We did remove the budget from HR, the HR director, and we revised the FTE, part of the FTE count revisions. Part of the FTE count revisions was also taking out those FTE for those district subs, but that budget is still in subs as well. But the FTE is pulled out because that is going to be contracted or timesheet, however that ends up working out in the moment. So that's out of there. And then, okay, so now we're going to go over to the Q&A piece, which is just kind of going to be the outline of our conversation and going over what the changes are in there and answering the questions. So let's see if this works here. Here we go. And this, Claire, I'm sorry, the screen share doesn't work on the Zoom. So I see you're in here. I see Dave and me. I saw you were in here before. So we're going through the Q&A document and the links that are in that on the screen. So you're not seeing that, but that's what I'm going to be referring to.
Nate, no worries. We have received all that via email, so I have access to it electronically. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so one of the questions last time was, is there a way to see the assumptions that were used in the budget without going line by line? And so what we did is we resurrected an old document that we used to use, and we've put the assumptions that went into that went into the proposed budget in a narrative form as well. And so these are the assumptions that went into the general fund and other funds. It breaks down so our state school fund, and I'm not going to read this unless you guys want me to read it. But so it identifies how we use the state school fund. One of the questions was also about ADM.
Nate, quick
Yes,
question. Is this document posted so that people can access it?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes. All these links were on the website too. Yeah. So and again, this is almost line by line, but this is a narrative again. So in the state school fund, we've identified 350 students in our ELL population, which is a weight that goes into that. And have the assumption that the additional weightings are stable. Our transportation grant assumptions, which is based on our contract. We talked about that last time, that was a 4.5% increase which is contractual with them. Our growth estimates on property taxes. Our estimate that we have in there is an $850,000 ending fund balance, which is about 1%. And at the time that we created the proposed budget, we were hoping to end the 25-26 fiscal year with $1 million. Again, the ending fund balance becomes the beginning fund balance of the next year. So that's the assumption in there. In the fall, we will be applying to pull indirect costs from grants funds, which is an additional revenue to the general fund. So that's something that's included. Special funds. So these are our non-general funds. These are the 200s are title grants and special revenues. Pretty much I'm summarizing, those are flat moving forward. And just a little bit more information about that. Oh, it's like somebody fixed something before I looked last. So again, information about those grants, information about nutrition services, which they're reimbursed per meal, and that goes up based on statistical information from the federal government. So there'll be an increase there. Let's see here. Little summary on our capital projects that we still have interest and balance there. We have some projects that are ongoing that will be finished in the next year. Our Senate Bill 1149 info, information about our construction excise tax revenues. And then also Willamette ESD, we have that in here. Excuse me. Just to talk about that we're utilizing more of their services this next year. And then unused resolution dollars are refunded as a revenue in the general fund, actually. So it's called transit. We transit that into that piece. On the expenditure side, we had the departments go in and put information. Boy, I thought I went through this. That's okay. So there's some edits still in here, but it looks like they're English teacher kind of edits. So the departments went in and put information about what they're looking at for the next year and moving forward. So that one is teaching and learning. And they're putting in there about curriculum and adoption schedules. Assessment. Again, some of the needs we have there. And special programs, and that one's a little shorter. Granted, remember our special programs director started a week and a half ago. She put some stuff in here even. Some information about our English language learners. Human resource information from them about who's eligible to retire. Some statistics that we put in there. We're anticipating 100,000 in savings from retirements. Information on our contracts on the salary side. One of the big things we talked about was some insurance changes. So there's our health insurance is all through OEBB. And we have in Oregon, we have a statutory cap of increase on those premiums at 3.4%. And OEBB is in negotiations with our insurance providers right now for next year. So that's happening right now. The assumptions on PERS was that we had started with the full PERS rate increase that was proposed or that was put out by Milliman and PERS. And then we decided to have some faith in the momentum of Senate Bill 849, which was a relief used a fund that the state had to relieve the increase by 1.6 points. So we put that in there. That did pass and is through. So that is official. But we put that in there before then in good hopes. And then updates on safety and security, technology. Let's see what we had in here. We have communications, which we're doing some services through Willamette SD for that next year. Finance and operation updates. Some of it's regurgitated from above. Utilities, this is the big one. So this is one that we had a question on before. So these are the percentage increases that we have from or anticipate from the providers. And we reached out to them to get this information. And so you can see it's anywhere from 8 to 12% on that, which is a lot. There's a lot of money we spend on utilities, and these kinds of changes are tough. So those are included in there. This is another place where we had an unknown that came up, which is our increase in our general liability and property insurance, which there's projecting a 17 to 20% increase in that. And that's a $700,000 bill that we pay each year. So that's sizable for us to have that kind of an increase. And then based on claims for workers' comp, what's called our mod rate. So that's also it doesn't look like a big jump, but that's a multiplier on job categories. And so that one is a pretty big jump as well when we talk about what we pay for workers' comp. So again, these kinds of things are not included when the state talks about rolling up. Like, this isn't something that they consider. They're considering everything as is. And again, this one, $200,000 or more between the two of these, that's a big section, a big chunk of our increase in funding. So there's the assumptions document. So that's to help explain, and that this will be in our proposed moving forward. So we're putting this back into this process.
So that's final as of today?
Yes,
This
is what went into our proposed.
That's what went into the proposal.
So the one that you guys got last time, these are the assumptions we used when we put that proposed together for you.
Okay.
So yeah.
Nate, I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
'Cause you were talking about utilities and cost increases with that. With garbage, you said that there was a 5% increase
Okay.
on the rates. I did want to touch on that because when I looked through the budget, maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot, like from the actuals 23, 24, it's doubled
What page is that on, if you don't mind me asking?
62.
Thank you.
Because you go from like 84,000, 22, 23, 86,000, 23, 24, adopted for 24, 25, 87, but you're proposing 151.
So I can get back to you information on that. I wish I could just pull up what built that number, but when we put the budget together, we distribute these like garbage would go to our maintenance shop. And so we ask them to budget, we give them an amount of money, like a big number, and then we ask them to distribute that among those accounts. And so when we surveyed, so our maintenance department reached out to get these percentages, and then that goes here, but then that's included in their big pot of money that they get to distribute. And so we had that department put those numbers in there for allocating their budget. So I have to go back and just see how they decided on those numbers. But I will say that we had big increases this year as well that were not accounted for. And so I think they may be being cautious and making sure to put it in enough capacity in there for those. But
Okay.
but I'm happy to send a more detailed information if you want that.
Yes, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
On that, is there any way, I know that they're not actuals, but some kind of where we're at this point, especially with those 200 associated costs that we're talking about with the electricity, those kind of things, just to have a better grasp on, I see what were adopted, but to understand why those numbers would go up like that, would be great if possible.
Yeah. So yes, I'm happy to I have that information. I'm happy to share that. Yeah. So just all the utilities you want information on?
I think looking at like history of it, I mean, we've been told, the last few years that there's been increases in utility costs, but it's not clear exactly where those increases are coming from. Is it a calculation issue of like, okay, you added to a building, but didn't anticipate you got to use more power, or like, from the construction, there is
Yeah.
additional usage. So I think it's kind of understanding, okay, there's an increase, great. But from where? What
Yeah.
is it specifically that's causing
So
an increase?
I can tell you this year. So the amount of money that we spent on utilities this year is over budget right now. So we don't have adequate budget in there for the utilities. And so what's in the budget now is to make up for that difference in budget where we think we're going to end this year, but also an additional 8% looking next year. So again, it's kind of like our ending fund balance story, right? Like we started in the negative, we got to get to positive, we got to get to zero, which is so much money, but then we got to get up to what we want it to be or what we're going to be above as well. So it's like a bigger problem than just a budget for, we said $800,000 for utilities or something like that. So we got to get from, and this is not the right number, we got to get from what was in there, say 600,000 to the 800,000 we have, plus 8% to get in to go what we think we're going to be spending next year. So that's kind of what built the numbers. Again, there's a lot of different accounts for that. Dundee has 2 right now for both buildings. But thankfully we won't have that next year, Lord willing. So, but yeah, I'm happy to share our utility projection.
I have a follow-up question on that. Thank you, Kim, for the garbage question. Not knowing where we are. I did mean it in the best way. Looking at where we are in the adopted budget for garbage compared to the prior 2 and then the increase. Are there any projects going on where the materials wouldn't be picked up by a contractor and are instead being redirected to our billing instead of?
Yeah, so we for the new Dundee, I'm assuming you're talking about. So those utilities turned over to us when they turned the building over. So up until that point, all the utilities for that site were part of the contractor's responsibility.
Okay.
So when they turned over the building, then the bills come to us. Yeah. So no.
Just seeing that almost double figure,
So
it makes you wonder if it wasn't demo that's being picked up on.
yeah, so one of the
bill.
changes to our electricity is also that Dundee, the old Dundee was natural gas, and the new Dundee is all electric. So that's a very different cost in total as well as the type. So yeah, good question. Okay. So that was the assumptions. The next question that's on there.
One
Oh,
more
yes,
question
please.
before we move on. So that same page in the budget, page 62,
Mhm.
telephone is kind of in the same boat. It had a 24-25 adopted of 0. And then 25-26 of 26,500. And I know you said earlier that there was no change in cost for telephone. Is that
Right.
just moving from somewhere else in the budget?
It's possible that when the budget cuts were happening for the budget last year, that line was removed altogether. And that now we have budget there again. So there are some places where, for example, our copier contract, there was no budget for that, but we have expenditures for the copier contract because it's a 5-year lease. So that's another area where you would see no budget last year, but budget this year.
So we just didn't have phones?
It just wasn't in the budget,
Okay,
but the costs and expenses are happening there. It just wasn't a line in the budget.
I see.
So there are times when we have expenditures that don't have budget assigned to it specifically, but it's captured in another line. Maybe we have the budget under an 001 center, but the actual expenses happen at 115 and 128 at Crater and Dundee and so on. So it might be delineated out more specifically in the actuals than it is in the actual budget itself.
And do we know what this is covering, the actual real telephones, like landlines, which I think now VoIP? So is it part of like the internet? Because I remember discussions around this last year that there were like the I don't know. Our prior superintendent talked about how there were cell phones for the buildings, and I think he was canceling all those. And I don't know if that's why there was budget and then it went 0.
Yeah, we still have costs for phones because we buy trunk lines. So like most of our schools have 554s, so we still have to buy those numbers. How we connect to that might be different, but we still pay for phone costs. We get bills from Verizon. We also have our analog lines for our elevators and alarms, and so we still have real phones. Yeah.
And excuse me for interrupting. It's hard to know when to speak when you're online. But I do remember that the telephone was a question we had in last year's process because it got moved from one part of the budget to another part of the budget. And the dollar amount didn't seem like it was enough. So it was a question the budget committee brought up last year, but but with the circumstances as they changed towards the end of the process, I'm not sure it ever got resolved, but it would certainly need to be resolved for this year. So thank you, Nate, for taking care of that.
Just one more question on that area. On the fuel cost there, is that our vehicle fuel and our agreement that we have with City of Newburgh? Or is that somewhere else?
Sorry, these ones don't have page numbers. So what's the account number before it? The three.
That's 326, just in the
Yeah,
same area.
so that's heating fuel.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's not vehicle.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Keep going. Keep going. All right. Sorry, too big. All right. So ADM, there's a question about our ADM. We're using 4,720.09, which is the number that's our hold harmless for this year. So the ODE is establishing pretty much that number for us based on our ADM submissions. Has the district realized any savings from Joanna Austin operating on a single floor this year? No, and that change would be pretty hard to measure for us, and as well, and we did find out in investigating this that we do have some activities happening up on the second floor. So there may be savings, but how to quantify that, I don't know how or how much that would be. So I'm just being honest there.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused by that. Just in terms of, and I don't know how the bills come in, but is there not a bill that is for each building that comes in? Is there not a way to see that? Because I think it's a valid question to decide how we want to utilize that space going forward, if this makes sense for how the school is running. And I could be off on how billing comes in, but it just feels like there should be a measurable way. And if not, what are we doing it for?
I'm not sure. You still have to heat the building. That's the big cost. The staffing doesn't change whether they're on 2 floors or on 1, the number of kids and the number of teachers. You may not have to clean it, but I didn't really see a decrease in custodial. We're still staffing that pretty similarly. Really, it's about supervision. Having the kids spread over a wider area is harder to supervise, but I don't really see any reason that we would save money by doing that. But maybe I'm not thinking totally through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there'd be some electricity savings, but what that result would probably not be a lot. I mean, it'd be something. I'm not saying it won't be anything, but as far as this process, I don't know that it'd be worth, looking any deeper. I'll be honest on that one. So how does the district how has the district identified savings from retirements? So the time we created the proposed budget, we anticipated about 5 retirements, and that savings to be about 20,000 per retirement. That's pretty low, but we were being conservative on that. And so that's one of the assumptions that went into those numbers in the proposed. Can the district prepare a contrast comparison document of what has changed in the budget? So because of adding the day hit so many lines, what we did is we just created this summary. So the budget is again made up of function or appropriation level and objects, and I just rolled them into those objects by appropriation. And then on the right side here, you can see what the result of all the changes were. Okay, so these are, again, we took out FTE for those district subs, and the HR came out as well. We had a issue with some coding on some counselors that we fixed that went into the 2000s, which is why we see the 1.4 increase over here. And then on the 3,000 level, the change in the day, we don't have a lot of change that we can make in the food service side. It all has to fit in the same revenue, but there were some adjustments there. And then we took out the allocation that we had available that had to go back to fund the day as well. So those are the changes over there. So that summarizes. And if you guys want, I have printouts of them, but I figured if you really wanted, I'd share it with you. But this will also be when you guys approve the proposed amended budget, that it will become the approved column. And then that column will be what is forwarded to the board for adoption at the June meeting. So there'll be this when you guys approve it, that becomes the next column after the proposed. And then the third column in the document will be the adopted once the board does that. So that's the summary of those changes. Like I said, otherwise it would be 1,700 lines of changes in there.
So I'm sorry, this is changes from what was presented last meeting?
Yes. Yes, based on your guys' questions, our conversation and the input we had since then.
So what's the narrative around what changes happens?
So that's what this is that we're going through, we're going through what the changes are. And well, starting with your questions, but these questions that you guys have asked have generated these changes.
Right. So you shared us a narrative document about what went into the original one.
Right.
Do we have a narrative of now what's associated to this or the new document?
Yep, that's what we're doing. So we're covering the things that are based on your questions. So that this is the explanation of what the changes are. And
this whole document?
They're in here, yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand why do we have another 9.44 difference? And what is
So we have
that narrative? What's directly related to this and not the whole thing? I guess if there's one specific link in there, great. But I'm just trying to understand what's.
I guess maybe I'm trying to put it all together in going through this part. And so I don't have a single document that talks about, that's a summary document of all this information.
Okay.
Okay. So ask the question again at the end. Okay, Jeremy. All right. So the next one.
I'm going to spend some time talking about this, like the question that Jeremy brought up last time about, like, what's the plan to get back to status quo? And so I've got a series of slides, so I'll go through and talk about that.
Okay. And the fund balance restoration plan is going to kind of fit into that. It came up about closing a school. We wanted to get that documented as well. And then the answer there was that it's not, we're not looking at that at this time, and it would entail a longer amount of engagement and analysis on the short-term and long-term impacts of the decision for both students and the community. One of the questions was, if we don't do the furlough days, what will the cuts look like? And we translated this into licensed or classified FTE. So the 6 remaining furlough days have an approximate cost of 1.6 million, which would equal 12.4 licensed FTE or 21 classified FTE. Broadly, again, it would be more specific if we had to do this. It would raise, class sizes to approximately 31.1 district-wide.
And what's the current class size, Chris?
I'm going to actually spend about 10 slides on going through in depth.
More to come.
Where we're currently at class size and what this budget proposes. So I'm actually going to spend a bunch of time on it.
Thank you.
One of the questions was about substitute employees, and how are we going to deal with that? Is it in the budget? So there's some changes to the, oops, excuse me. I'll read this and then I'll click on it. So yes, the cost of substitute employees is increasing due to both wage growth for the temporary staff and increased utilization of available leaves. The budget includes budget for both contracted subs, and it gives you the object numbers there, and the payroll costs of current employees or timesheet employees as may be necessary. So one of the changes in there was that we still had the FTE in there for the temporary in-district subs. And so those are the FTE, some of the FTE that came out of there. And then we retained a lot of that budget in there because as we get coverage, it may be, if we have issues with our I always want to call them a temporary agency, but it's essentially what ESS is, for our contracted substitutes, that's the right word. And then we may have in-district or timesheet folks come when we don't, or if we're having issues getting subs. So those costs are all still there. And just for reference, I just did a graph to show, and I'll make this bigger. And still bigger, where our sub costs have been per fiscal year. And obviously you're like, can anybody tell me why that one's so low? Okay. Okay. The question, you say there's no such thing as a dumb question, right? And then this is our year to date on sub costs right now. So we still got 3 months to go, but we're trending towards just under $1 million this year. And so we're being conservative as in the budget as well to keep about $1 million, shade over $1 million in sub costs in there in both contracted services and timesheet or employee costs.
I was going to ask, so this current number of this year is with the in-district subs, correct, with the third-party staffing
both
services?
Yep,
Yeah.
That's correct. And let's see. And I thought, let me just, sorry, zip down here. And I'm going to jump down to this one. Was there a cost savings by having district subs versus contracting out for subs? It's a complicated answer, but the short answer is no, because when you have someone on staff and they're a fully loaded employee, we're paying wages, benefits, and payroll costs for someone there every day versus with like a temporary employee, you're going to pay for them when you get them. And so there's a functional benefit to having in-district subs, but not necessarily a cost savings benefit. But again, it's a decision that can be good or bad, either one. So for example, I'm going to give you an example from food service. That's where I'm from. I had 2 subs for my 140 employees for those times when I couldn't get a sub. So that was the use I had there. But I think we've had success with the ESS getting subs. So again, there's some management that happens with subs.
Are we planning on keeping those positions that we had added last year? I'm sorry.
No, those are removed from this budget. Yeah.
Did we ever get any feedback from building administrators on the benefits for students,
Yes.
consistency for kids?
It's
And
much easier for the building administrator to have that district sub. Just the familiarity, the quickness with which they can allocate them. That's a very positive thing for that administrator. In the governor's budget, there isn't money for that. Really, this has to do with the budget because it's a very good thing to have in the school.
I guess my question would be if I guess the statement in here made it seem like it was a cost neutral, end there. If we're going to end it just about $1 million and last year was about $1 million without that, when sub rates were high, I guess I'm interested in that. If it does have that positive benefit for students and administrators and teachers to have the consistency.
Yeah, we're paying PERS and the salary costs and those pieces are above and beyond. So that's actually the money that we're.
So that wasn't in that chart when
No,
we were showing that.
This chart has our year-to-date costs and
but that's not including
this includes our in-district subs. Yes.
With the PERS and fully
Yes.
loaded costs in it.
Yes.
So I guess just seeing that, obviously it's not the end of the year.
Right. This is about
I'm
75%.
confused by the idea that we're going to shoot for the same amount, but we wouldn't keep that positive.
The hope is that we come in under,
Sure.
but we need to have
Yeah.
capacity
That is
for
the hope.
reality if it changes on us.
we'll get back to you on
Yeah.
that one because it's 10 subs at, our regular, what we calculate as a an average FTE cost is 120,000. So that's $1 million right there. So I'm not sure. We'll take a look at that chart.
That's fair. Yeah. Just
and we'll
if
get back to you on that specific. Again, if it was cost neutral and we would install it back into our
yeah, then I would definitely be interested in seeing that fully loaded cost
Right.
to understand that because
but we can work that up for you. I don't think that really inhibits what we need to do tonight, but we can figure that out.
Yeah, as part of that analysis, and I agree, it probably does not need to be done for any approval, but like how many days, so if we're paying them every school day, how many days were they not assigned essentially an extra hands somewhere in the district, right? Versus actually being a classroom sub or an EA sub or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that would also help understand and then maybe what the going rate is from the ESS side per teacher per day or per EA per day, and then and kind of do the
Sub rate is dictated by the state. So they give a half day and full day rate. And so we pay that rate plus their fee on top of it, kind of like temp
Right.
agencies you pay. I don't know what ours is, I won't say, but
But we can put that together. Yeah,
easy.
I think that's good.
I think our interest in it also is sensitive to the fact that in my recollection, those district subs were people that were on that were close to that RIF list. And I just want to be sensitive to the fact that those people were, lost their teaching jobs,
Yep.
were able to be offered that. And so I think the more data and information we can have on this, we can feel better about making that decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Has the district created a plan for the scenario where federal funding is cut? This is a discussion that's happening at the state level that we're paying attention to. Some scenarios that they're talking about include the use of rainy day funds at the state level, which there are healthy. But a majority of these decisions are residing with the state, and we're monitoring the activities around it right now. So that's the answer on that one. What if the state fund comes in lower than the governor's recommended budget? And I think the answer to that is really this is this is the number that we're able to use and that our association groups are using. Most states are using this, or most districts are using the governor's budget. And so that's what it's the assumption we've put into creating this budget. We won't get the actual number from the legislature until the May, June timeframe, somewhere in there.
But if it's less, I mean, we've cut this budget down to, there's not much left to cut. So if it's less, then we have to look at class size because we've already got furlough days sitting in this budget, and I'll talk about that in my next part. But if it comes in less, then we're going to have to look at class size.
Okay, there was a request for what kind of things are in our 300 or purchase services, and so there was a report included in there as well. Pull that up, and this is again what I ended up doing is because there was 127 that were under $1,000. They were mostly like reimbursements or small piecemeal things, and so I took those ones out. You can see there's 127 total to 41,000. And so I listed the 134 that were over 1,000 because I was assuming that the ask was like, what's the big ones, right? And so this is alphabetical, but you can kind of just see, and the ones with asterisks are bond related costs are included there. So I tagged that in there so you'd be like, wow, what are we spending 250,000 for with brick architecture? It's a good class for our kids. No, yeah. So that has to do with the bond. And so, yeah, in the list, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Why is there utilities in this list if they're already covered in our 200 series or 100, 200?
So this is just an example of what those expenses are. So in our 300s, the utilities show up in the 300 accounts as purchase services because we purchased it through them. And so that's why utilities are in here.
Okay.
So here's the picture of where we are. What we're currently spent on utilities is in this report as well. As our largest one is our transportation contract. Here's our year-to-date expenses with ESS, which is our where we get our contracted subs.
That's year to date.
This year to date, yeah.
But then we have 10 subs at 120,000 a year.
We need to go back. I need to give you exact.
They have
numbers there.
they have shortened calendars. They do. And
Gotcha.
HMS is HVAC for us, but also was awarded on the bond for projects as well. Northwest Natural Gas is a big one.
Why is there other school districts on this list?
We have some contracts with some special education placements. Forest Grove in particular that's a contract with Oak Grove.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Here's PGE, little shocker. This Allied Force is an agency we use to help with students with special needs.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry for harping on this, but I still got to go back to the utilities. If this is object 300 transaction detail, then why isn't? I mean, we're under a section 200 for all these utilities, so I'm totally lost.
I believe it was 300. The 200 looks like everything's under it, but
oh yeah, okay, never mind. Thank you.
I got confused.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, good. I was thinking maybe you're looking under the 2000s. Is maybe what you were saying, but no. Okay.
Excuse me, maybe I'm naive, but I am really shocked at the amount we spend on first student transportation. Do we have data that shows the amount per student and the amount of time that those students spend under the care or under the services of first student?
We could probably get that information. I can tell you that on our state school fund, they tell us where we are in percentile as far as expenses are.
Right.
And we're just at the 70th percentile as far as statewide on our transportation expenses per pupil.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's concerning to me. So yeah, I'll look forward to getting a little bit more information on
Okay,
that.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question on that. Is that partially because of the percentage of rural land we have in our district that requires a longer time on transportation?
Yes, and the size of a district makes a difference as well, because there's economies of scale that happen with larger districts, where, you know, sometimes when it's a time versus density is not the right word, population on the bus, I guess. So we might be driving a bus out for 4 kids, that because that bus has a long route. Whereas when you have the homes that are closer to a school, you fill up in higher population density, you're going to fill up a bus a lot more. So that's, yeah, question.
One follow-up to this, and correct me if I'm way off topic here, but with the bus, it's based on number of routes, right? Is that how the contract is kind of set? Is you have a certain number of routes that they're going to provide?
Yeah, so we have a base fee that doesn't change, and then we have a per route fee as well that they charge so much per. I'd have to go back and look. I don't have off the top of my head how that route fee works, but
So I guess here's kind of a dumb question. It's not a today thing to answer, but it would be kind of more of a long term. You know, having middle school and high school starting and ending at the same time, would that mean that one bus can, you know, they're servicing elementary, then you go to either the middle school or the high school? Are you increasing routes because that bus can't do 3 routes because middle and high school are ending at the same time? Versus, you know,
Yeah.
so if you scatter when each school starts and ends, that same bus can go run a route for elementary, run a route for middle school, run a route from high school. And sorry, but if you have to do a drop off for your kid and you've got more than one kid at different schools, that kind of makes it suck. But that does seem kind of like you're increasing routes. And I know that this is probably not a budget committee question, but it is increasing your transportation cost, correct? Because you're not able to use that same, you know, one bus for all 3 schools.
So may I add a little bit to this, being since I live in the rural part of the school district, by having middle and high schools start times very similar to each other, we're able to put our 6th through 12th graders on the rural routes together, so we have fewer routes running up into the mountains. So that actually saves us money by not having to run drivers up there 3 times. They only go up there twice.
and I could definitely share your concerns with First Student and ask them to look at how our routes do. I know changing bell schedules and times is a big deal. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that I'm not shocked by that amount. And so what I'm really kind of curious about is, because that's not surprising to me from my other districts I've worked in. So I also think let's put together some numbers that kind of compare that and see, is that something. I will say when they switched several years ago, bus things for a better price, it was not good. And so again, we'll do some work and put together some comparisons here so we know whether or not we're getting a good deal. I believe that's a good deal, but let me put some numbers behind it. Yeah.
Do that.
Thank you. It feels like it's low hanging fruit for some contract negotiation or comparison to some other services or something like that, where we could, deploy even a fraction of that amount towards actual education and teachers and, things that really matter to this district.
And also, I don't know if I covered this last meeting, but the state reimburses our transportation costs 70%. which it doesn't make it any better, but just so you know, there's some funding attached to a section of these expenses. So
And Nate, just to clarify,
Yeah.
sorry, this is actual expenditures to date.
yes,
And I know we've got escalators in that contract that
Yep.
will push that up 4.5% more next year, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that's in the proposed as well. Yeah. All right. All right. What's the next one? Okay. Can a report be created to identify the positions that were cut and where they were added back? So what we have here is a document from HR department. This is what we had available. And this, see if I get bigger. Okay, can. So on the left side here, this is the original reduction in force. By classified, administrator, licensed, elementary, licensed, secondary. And then on the right side, these are the positions that have been added back since that RIF. I thought there was a second page. Oh, and this is the actual position detail of the original reduction in force list. So, oh, one more. So that's the detail, and this is just a summary of where that is. So there's the 86.99 and 14 have been added back. Not all of these, I will say, I believe were on the RIF list. So this special ed director was not RIFed. Is that right?
No,
Was it? Okay. Or is this vacated and accepted as a savings?
No.
No?
that was Rift.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I take it back. Okay. This one I'll just kind of breeze over a little bit. There are some revisions to the FTE chart. There was some formatting that's going to be included in the adopted as a document. So that was just format stuff. So we'll get that. We have that fixed, which is here. And then I think these are just other. So these charts will also be included in there as well, scattergrams for where the licensed staff are on the salary schedule. That's something we used to include in the budget document. And then also what that equates to as far as dollars go as well. So those will be in there as well. We already talked about subs. That's it for that document. That's fine.
Can I ask a quick question based on the substitute conversation and the comment here that said, or part of the question, that employees will have more access to paid leave Oregon. Did you see anything in the data where you had some of your leaves drop off requiring substitutes when Oregon fixed the paid leave Oregon rule and uncoupled it from OFLA?
I haven't looked at that, but I think that's something that I could definitely take a look at.
It's just more, I mean, it happened in the past, but if that can be a predictor as you're looking at future dollars to know that that fix probably stopped a runoff in some areas.
For the double,
Yeah,
taking of leave. Yeah.
thank you.
All right. So that was the information that you guys were sent. Let me just make sure there's nothing in the packet that I missed. And so now we're going to go to
I think it's me.
Dave.
I think move to my.
Yep. I get my mouse back here. Here we go.
So last time Jeremy asked a question about when are we going to get back to status quo? And it gave me pause because it turns out to not be a simple question as to say it's going to be 2 years. And so, because in many ways we're already back to normal. And in other ways, we're definitely not. And so I wanted to kind of give you some more in-depth knowledge around the ways in which we are back to normal, and then talk just briefly about like what are the things that still we have to deal with. And it really comes down to class size, furlough, and then adequate budgets for kind of normal things. Those are kind of the big areas that we want to talk about. So we're going to go forward one. When are we getting back to normal? That's the question that's kind of out on my head here. One more. So in this budget, what we've staffed at is 21-to-1 K3, 24-to-1 4-5, and then 26.5-to-1 in our middle schools, and then 25.75 to 1 in the high schools. I put the asterisks next to the secondary schools there because of the other issue you have in the secondary schools. In any one period, some teachers are on prep. And so the number of kids that you have in a school, you're going to split them among fewer teachers. And so when I say an average class size here, there's always in the secondary schools, the actual kind of expected class size is always going to be larger than your average class size. And we know that because I can calculate how many teachers are on prep every period. And that's something we would kind of think of as the efficiency. And this has to do with their schedule. So I want to kind of go through each of these areas here and kind of talk about which, okay, there we go. Let's hit the next one. So what I went through and did is graph, kind of create a histogram of what our current class sizes are right now. And what you'll see here is K3, basically you have 16 to 18 kids is the first bar, 18 to 21 is the second bar, and the third bar there is 21 to 24. So 20 of our classrooms right now kind of exist in this 21 to 24 range. There's a couple of classes, K3, that are larger than that, some bubbles, but most of our classes right now, even after our cuts this summer, fall right in this range. And the number that we staffed at kind of falls right in the middle or right at the beginning between the two largest bars there. So this budget, there's a decision that we made in creating this budget around how we wanted to staff, how we wanted class size to be. Rather than raise class size, we would rather do furlough days, and that's what's in this budget. Let's go to 4-5. This is our current, I took this off of our April class size sheet, and basically we have 11 classes that are 11 to 23. We've got 8 classes going 23 to 28, and then a couple of classes, some bubbles that sit larger than that. But again, we've got 19 of the 24 courses all sit somewhere right in that 19 to 28 range. And our basic number here is 24 is what we staffed at, which again kind of falls right in the middle of that middle graph there, which again I think is a really healthy place for us to have chosen. This is kind of a graph. It's 8 local districts and their average class size per grade level. What I want you to notice is both K3, we're lower than all of those, the average of those districts. I'm going to show you another chart that has some more detail here, and then 4-5, 27, we're staffing lower than the averages out there right now. Middle school, these 28s, again, we're expecting the actual class sizes because of the prep period to be larger than this. We're staffing at 26.5, I think is what I said. And so again, we're falling below all of the folks that that are around us. And we've made a choice in this budget around doing that. This is again a table that kind of lists various districts, some of our kind of local in the same basic areas as us. Again, if we look across K1-3, 25, 25, 24, 24, 22. Some of them do kindergarten lower and then have higher class sizes, 1, 2, 3. But again, our class sizes in comparison right now, we're super competitive here. In just about every level. I'm going to go back to the secondary in a second here, but I want to bring that out because of the other choice and we do have one problem, which is because of some of our L's are small. Let's say that I have in a school, I have a grade level that has 2 sections of 18, which if we're staffing at 21 is a little low. But for us to go to 1 section and save that FTE, the class size goes from 18 to 36. And 36 is unworkable, especially K3. So we're also a little constrained in how much FTE we could pull out of these buildings. But I think this is the right thing to do. It's why we suggested it. We could pull FTE out of these buildings and raise class size and pay for those furlough days, but then we make 172 days hard and 6 days better. Our choice was really around take the 6 furlough days, make those are hard, but then the 172 days are responsible. So that's the thinking kind of going into the class size piece here. I want to go to secondary because I want you to understand kind of where we're at there. Again, secondary, we're at 26.5 and 25.75. Here's our actual class sizes at the high school as of April. You'll see that 53 of our classes fall between 27 and 32. As a secondary chemistry and physics teacher, I can tell you 27 is a great number to have in a class. I like that. When I get down to 21, 22 in a class, I find it hard. It's a little harder to arrange groups and the rest. There's a kind of, for me, in my experience of teaching, there were some lower limits. But at the high school right now, we've got 53, then we've got 33, 31, 19, all of that falling lower than 27. That is strong. That's a strong number. Some of the classes, you'll see there's an 8 there that has from 36 to 40. In a high school, the other thing that you have that helps with class size is you have choir and you have PE. And we have these larger classes that are 40, 45, 50 that now make somewhere else a class that's 20 and 23. So at the high school, there's some natural levels with as many FTE as they have of doing that. But again, I look at this high school and it's why we suggested we basically left the staffing at the high school the same as this year. This is very good. I'm sure there are some bubbles there. So as I'm saying this, I'm sure there's some people at home that go, my class isn't great. I'm sure there's some bubbles, but as a rule, we're staffed well here. Greg.
So looking at that, I almost go the other way. Make a case for me why there wasn't a reduction in staff FTE at the high school with some of those really small sizes there.
Some of the, it's in each of the schools, as I had them print out the master schedule and then I went through. Part of this is some of these classes are, you have kids who are double scheduled into a class, and I tried to pull all of those out, but I could have easily made some mistakes in some of that. Again, I would tell you that there are some classes, a lot of times like advanced calculus, might not, it kind of runs both ways in a high school, which is you may have like an advanced calculus that has 38. But sometimes some of the more advanced classes, some of the CTE classes that are on the upper end might have some lower class sizes. You could make that recommendation to me to pull FTE out. I just didn't feel like at the time that was necessary. I didn't really want to raise class sizes. My brain was really around, I want to roll up. I want to take what we're doing this year and I want to do it next year. That's kind of where we were trying to go with this. Hit the next one there. This is CV. The middle school is probably the bigger pain point for us. We staffed them this year at 28.5, I think, to 1. They were running a 5 of 6 schedule. No, 5 of 6, which is, I think, 82%, something like that. So only each period, only like 82% of your teachers are available. And so we would have expected them to be in the 32 to 36 kind of range. They have some choir, they have some things that take down some of the class size, but by and large at CV, their classes are running, the majority of them are 26 to 32 kids. They've got 16 that are 32 to 39. That's where some of the pain is here. But they're amazingly kind of balanced in the, I mean, most of their classes are kind of in this 26 to 32 range. The next one, Mountain View's even more. 39 classes are in that 29 to 36, and then we've got some lower in the rest. This is a place in this budget we pushed in effectively 2 FTE to the middle school. So this was one place that we are trying to lower class size a little bit. The other thing is that they've been working with their staff and with their parent group to change the schedule to a 7-period day, which will mean more teachers are available per period to teach, which should again lower their class size by about 1 student per class is kind of what we're looking at there. So I'm hoping that when we do this graph next time that they're going to be into that closer to that kind of 27 to 31 kind of range. But that's what we're working with the middle schools. There is some FTE that we're pushing in there in this budget. And so I wanted to give you that perspective because there is a choice that we've made here around, we're still class size, I would say we're back to normal, probably better. Furloughs, definitely not. That's definitely, we're still short. We have budgets. We've tried to make the budgets, we've been talking about them more robust, utilities and some of these other places, but curriculum and technology, we haven't. We're going to have to fund those through our construction excise tax, through some of the bond stuff in this next year. We're going to need help. We don't have time to build those budget back in a single year. So that's kind of, we're still on so I guess what I would say is furlough days will take a couple of years here for us. I think class sizes were already in a good spot. I think most of our budgets were in a pretty good spot. Specifically, curriculum and instruction and technology will be several years getting that. Now, what happens if we get more money? Because of additional revenue right now is going to be huge for us, either through one of 2 ways. One is we've been working on building ending fund balance. We've given you an estimate. We're still working on building that ending fund balance. If there is more money, there's still an opportunity for us to restore furlough days. That would be probably our highest priority right now. Is we're at 6. We would like to continue to buy back some days. But on this budget with this, the governor's budget doesn't pay for that. Portland Public, $40 million short. Beaverton, $30 million short. I think they're riffing 10 million and they're using ending fund balance for 20 million. Hillsborough, $20 million short. I mean, these are major districts that are all having the same basic problem with the governor's budget. It is not keeping up with our increase in costs. I tried to put, for us, I think our priorities, if there is extra funding, either through, there's a couple of different bills that are still going through the legislature around erasing the sped cap and high cost disabilities, or if they actually invest money because the districts are cutting everywhere. For us, I think the first thing is restore furlough days. The hiring HR director is a high priority for us. It's a real challenge for us right now, having Tammy and I kind of pinch hit into that space. we're doing it and we'll do, I mean, in this budget, we do not have an HR director in it. But we will pitch in again next year if that's what has to happen. But with more revenue, this would be something that I would definitely be looking at because I think it creates a risk for our district. The last thing I would say is really most of our budget work and the staffing, the class size is fine. So really what we need to prepare for is September, and every September there are bubbles. The enrollment comes in differently than what we've forecasted. And so we're going to have to adjust to that. So any other money that comes in, I'd put it in the pocket and wait for September to see where we're at. Other than that, I feel like we're ready to move forward into next year. As far as like, are we the status quo part? I think really we're not in a bad spot except for furlough days and an HR director. So that's kind of what I wanted to give you a little bit of background and detail around kind of why we did what we did with this budget and where we're at. And I think, oh yeah, we did want to just talk through this because I know there was a question in the piece, but curriculum technology budgets are still an issue for us. Construction exercise, we can definitely utilize for some technology. We also still have some bond money that I think will help us deal with some of the tech and some of the curriculum. Things that we brought back that were gone, superintendent. So we have a superintendent. Yay. A SPED director. I can't tell you again, it's been great working with Dana Christie, our new SPED director, and it's been wonderful. So I'm excited to have it. We have a business manager back. Those things were added back after last year. Things that aren't, HR director still is not in this budget. And if that's what we need to do, that's what we'll do. Communications coordinator, we still don't have someone here doing communications. We're currently, we'll contract next year again with ESD to help us with that. But if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do. Other than that, I mean, I think we're, in a good spot.
Well, David, I want to say thank you. I know I was the one that was kind of firing that last meeting. This does help explain your thought process and the way it's coming across. The only last question I have regarding like furlough days is, I know we have a days, of kids in the seat or hours in the seats calculation that we have to meet per Oregon standards, but is there anything that we're going to get dinged in the long run if we keep having furlough days from like a state of Oregon or ODE perspective?
So it's 6 days, we'll still meet the standards. We're close. So again, if we're missing days, then we're going to have to put them back in. We're currently negotiating with NEA, and so that's already come up in our conversations around how we'll deal with that. So we're already talking with them about that part of it. But
from the state or ODE, we don't, as long as we're meeting the hours or whatever, we're fine.
We got to meet Division 22 standards.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're tight at that place. So that's going to be a worry for us if we don't, after this budget process is done, where we see our ending fund balance and whether or not there's additional revenue, that's got to be something that we're talking about.
Ending fund balance and growing that. I was curious, in the question and answer packet, it had a little section basically said we might be at about $1 million starting fund balance, which is wonderful. And like that 2.2 talk of where we were at to where we are now is wonderful. It looked like in the budget, we are preparing for an ending fund balance of like 850. Is that correct? Is that just contingency? I didn't know if that was.
Yeah. So this budget is built on our existing plus any new resources.
Okay.
And so essentially what we have as an ending fund balance this year is projected to be our ending fund balance next year. Now I say that, and now again, this is preparing the budget. Remember, the budget is the plan.
Yeah.
The revenues that we have in there is our container. So that's what this is we're working in our container. do we make conservative estimates on things to give us some space to grow that? Yes. Is it a line by line addition that I do? No. But in our internal assumptions, which is much bigger than the one that I send you, there are things in there that I'm hoping that will add a little bit to that next year as well. And again, the funding picture isn't painted for us either. So
Sure.
this is our best educated guess.
I guess my follow-up question would be, what assurance can we have that our ending fund balance won't be below whatever our starting fund balance is this year?
Well, stay tuned, Saul. We have a financial update of the second meeting.
Perfect.
And we'll give you some more information about the trajectory of our fund balance.
And it's positive.
And it's positive.
I get that. I'm just making sure that we will make sure that at the end of next year, we're not lower than we are
And
as of today, or, you know.
and I'll add from me that the margins are so tight on this budget that we're being cautious. And we're being
appreciate that.
not overly cautious, but for us to mess up is scary. It's scary for me. I mean, honestly.
All of us.
Yeah. And so what's in this budget is a lot of hard decisions. Like, for example, one of the hard ones was, okay, we're going to think that 1.6% relief on the PERS fund is going to happen. That was a gamble, and but one that we were willing to take because we believed it was going to happen. And so there's been decisions like that along the way, but we're making decisions in the best interest of this district. So yeah,
Appreciate that.
good. Thank you.
I want to say a big thank you as well. What I'm hearing from this is, after a really difficult year last year, first of all, thank you to those who came in, Claire and others who did a lot of hard work in a short period of time. What this tells us when you do that class size analysis is that they did a pretty good job in a really hard situation. So thanks to those folks, and thanks to you. I think, Dave, seeing the detail of the class size analysis that you've done shows me that you've done the underlying work of what is our FTE, where are our people, what's our plan, and that gives confidence to the community that we're not having surprises, that there's being careful and meticulous work being done to see what is actually going on, and making conservative plans for the future. And I hear that kind of all the way through, and just want to say I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you.
I do have a question on the budget. So, we talked about ADMW and what the budget was based off of. Do you have a head count that it was based on?
So the ADMW that's in this, that drives it, is based on the head count, the actual head count of, so there's two different ADMs. There's ADMR, which is our head count, and there's ADMW, which is our weighted count. So things like ELL, SPED, poverty, pregnant and parenting, those things add weights. And so our actual head count is our actual head count, the ADMR, that's all built off of. Is that?
So the number that you used to build the budget, what enrollment number were you using? How many kids?
So that's the 4920 weighted, which is so the state school fund pays us the greater of our current year or the prior year.
Mhm.
And so we've had declining enrollment for many years. And so this budget is based on our current FTE, which is going to be higher than what we're projected to have next year. So that's that 4916, I think it was.
47.
Kim, are you just looking
Yeah.
for our current enrollment?
Well, we've talked about enrollment before, and we have a number for how many kids we have right now in seats. What are we projecting for next year for enrollment? Are you saying we're going to grow? Are we shrinking?
We're
staying
anticipating
flat?
to have a few less kids next year, but the state school fund is going to be based on numbers that we really have. So if we do have less kids next year, if we have like 100 less kids next year, we'll be paying attention to those in our actual enrollment reports to plan for that loss that's going to happen the following year, because the state gives us a grace year basically
Yeah.
for us to deal with that. But if we're not paying attention to that, then that's where problems arise.
Okay.
Just some added information there because it's interesting, which is, again, the graph that I've shown several times is the enrollments dropped like 100 kids the last couple of years. This year it stayed kind of steady, and our initial kindergarten registrations, I think I don't have a measurement to measure it against, except that many of our kindergartens are kind of already past the enrollment forecast that we had for them. So we're actually seeing a more robust kindergarten registration than we've seen in recent years. And so I mean, September will kind of determine that, but there's a little bit of positivity that maybe we're not going to see as much of a drop next year. I don't know yet, but as we're working with principals, many of them are already at where we forecast them for next year. And we've still got, a lot of people register for kindergarten when they see the buses running in late August and early September. So we usually get a big rush there. So that's interesting to me. Like, as we forecast to have a drop. I don't know yet. This year we've seen a leveling off, and next year with this kindergarten, we'll see. I'm not sure. Hopeful.
I have a question along those lines. You talked about the September bubble, that's where things shake out. Many years ago, we had some errors from some guidance that the district was getting about, all these homes are being built, but these are not families moving in. And what sources are we using to help us predict the crystal ball on who's really going to show up in expanded housing?
Yeah.
And are they going to have school-age children, or have we truly entered that what I called sudden transient, where people just up and move to a new district like that? They don't enroll, they're there, either because of job or something else.
So we'll work with the city around the permits that they're issuing to kind of know when and where things start to open up. We haven't, at the last board meeting, we talked a little bit about this, which is we haven't run a enrollment study in a while. So that's actually something that I'm going to have to get started and start hopefully early summer and have by the fall. Because we really need to our last one showed us was like 2015 and showed us increasing by 1,000 students, and that hasn't happened at all. So that study needs to happen. We do know, we can get from the city kind of how many permits we have. The issue is that 10 years ago, the ratio that let's say you have 40 houses that are going to come online in your district over the next year. The ratio that we used to use to tell us how many kids would come out of those spaces has changed drastically just in the last couple of years. So I don't feel comfortable, until I actually talk to a researcher and get some, what are the current ratios? I think we're going to be kind of, our estimates, I think, are going to be pretty broad. I'm not sure how accurate we're going to be until we get some more study on this.
So along those lines, I had a friend in real estate who said, used to be a 3 or 4 bedroom house meant kids, and now it means 2 people working from home with their own office and then a game room. So I think that falls in line with what you're talking about for a study.
We do have some different types of housing that are coming online inside of our district. And so I do expect to see some differences in kind of the number of kids coming out of the different spaces.
And the experience that in a previous district I had with large growth, the number of kids that were in those houses was much less than was projected. So it took quite a few years before we started seeing growth from those areas like we hoped. So even the projections that in recent time weren't very accurate. So who knows? So I guess we're in the butts and seats model, right? Okay, so the question is now, With the changes that we talked about, we listed them out, the summary on that page. So the summary is the breakdown of how those changes are layered into the proposed budget. We're to the point now where we would, the motion would be to approve the proposed budget as amended. And then we would set the permanent tax rate. Real quick info on the permanent tax rate. So that's a Measure 50 thing that happened in the 90s. Every district got assigned whatever their rate was per 1,000 for education. It got entered into statute and it's permanent. We can go below that or we can go up to it. That's it. All it does is reduce funds for us if we lower that rate. So we don't want to do that. Or it stretches the state school fund. I don't know of any district that's changed that rate, but it's permanent. And then the other one is our bond rate, which is the amount that we're going to assess to homes. We're doing it by amount, and that's to meet the debt service on the 2021 general obligation bond. So in the packet is some sample language that's in there.
Before we get there, I'm still completely unclear on how we moved from 6 FTE cut to 944 FTE cut on the 1,000. So this is still not, after all the explanations, I'm still not sure what happened here. So
we have the reduction of the FTE for the license subs that you guys caught in the first one. So that is, should have printed that out. I believe that was 6.5 FTE. We have a reduction of the 1.0 for the HR director that was originally in there. We have some additional FTE that we had to code for some counselors that were miscoded, that we fixed that. So that went into the positive number that you see in the 2000s. So there's a minus and a plus in there. And then I think we had an additional classified reduction that would have come out again on the 1000s side. So again, that's not going to get to your 9 number there, but that's what I know off the top of my head. But I'd be happy to send you the detail on that. I just have to pull that data.
But then didn't we add back in the 3, the SPED, the 3 other people we were just
Those were
talking
originally in the proposed.
about? Okay.
So these are changes since we proposed.
Okay.
So were the FTE listed, but not necessarily the full cost of each of those positions?
Are you talking about for the subs?
No, I'm talking about for that 9.44 FTE, because it just doesn't seem like that would change the total amount for that object only that much, or even, I guess, up at all if we're going down.
So when we change from employees to contracted services, we don't have 200 costs for those anymore, because that's moving to a contracted service. So I will say when I pulled those out, I left the salary amount in there for the capacity for subs. So and I don't mean to make this sound like I'm lazy, but we needed the capacity for the subs in the budget, whether it was in the 100s or 200s. We're not bound by object as far as expenditures go. And so I took the FTE out, but left most of the budget in there just to cover our additional sub costs. So, but it does save us on the benefit side. And then by adding the day in there, that's going to create increased costs in the 1s and 200s. So that's going to reduce the amount that's actually that adjustment's going to make. So there's a lot of hydraulics that happen when we make these changes. And so a summary sheet isn't, the idea is to give you an overview of what those changes are, not so much the detail itself, because in this case, it was so much detail. So that was, I guess, my mistake in trying to have that not be too complicated.
it's fine to have the summary. I'm just trying, well, what triggered additional FTE to be cut?
It was in the budget, in that original proposed, but we don't want that there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we just needed to
Okay.
clean that up.
We're cleaning up the detail. As you guys ask the questions, we're cleaning up the detail to make sure we're matching. And again, the expenditures are bound by the revenue that we have. So this is our plan. This will probably change next year as we dive more into changes in our operations. And then if we do get out of appropriation in this, or as more revenue needs to be spent, if it comes in, we're going to be coming back to the board with those changes to make sure that our expenditures are in line with what we have. Go ahead, Greg.
Can I try to reflect back to see if I'm hearing this right?
Sure.
So I think what I'm hearing is 6.5 or so of the FTE were the permanent subs. And the change in that is we gain or we lose expense in the budget for their benefit package, but the salary keeps in because that'll go to contracted.
Yes, I kept it for capacity.
Okay.
Yes.
And then there are some other FTE cuts that you mentioned, like HR and some other ones. And then the reason that some of the costs are going up, even though there's a FTE, is that you added back a furlough day. And so all of those get sent out to all the different salary amounts or whatever. And that ends up with the total that's increased. So that's why there's some increase and some decrease.
Yes.
Okay.
So now we're 5 furlough days versus 6?
No, we're
We're-
at 6. It was 7 in the
It was-
original
yeah.
budget.
Oh, I
That
thought
was
we were,
the-
I thought we were 2 from the very beginning.
No, and that was what brought this up, was that in the last meeting back, I don't know who asked it, but someone said that, and then
Because my notes specifically said furlough days equals 6 on our last meeting.
no, it was his, yes.
But the numbers you say what were represented were actually showing 7, not
Yes.
6, even though
Correct.
physically you said 6
That
is
was
the tension.
That was the correction.
Okay.
Yep.
So I would like
The 6,
to-
sorry, go ahead.
No, if you're still asking questions, I was gonna make a motion, but I'll hold off until the questions are done.
This
Question.
is,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
On when do you normally find out if there are retirements or changes in contracts, staffing?
We're finding that now. We're currently we're not into double digits on retirement, but I think we used how many? 5. We're above 5. We'll continue to, I think we have 26 days of school left. I think most of the folks have declared, but they can continue to declare. But I think we're pretty close to what will be.
Thank you.
No, there's one more last number on the summary. What was the 6,000 appropriation, the 150,000 difference for?
At the bottom.
Yeah, so that was allocation. So that was basically setting some budget aside, just like in this year's budget, we had allocation that we redistributed. Oh, did we do that yet? Oh, that's in the next board meeting. I'm sorry. The next board meeting, we're gonna have an appropriation transfer of moving that budget into areas that need it. So that was what we had a little bit that we put there. And then when the day thing came up, it was like, well, that's where we're going to need to put that for this budget. So it got redistributed. So it's, if you see in the first column, that 150 is now 0 in the revised. And so that's been redistributed up above.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion. Nate, would you like this all in one motion or 3 separate motions?
That's up to the committee. But it could be, I think 3 would be
I'll
better.
Okay, 3 would be better. All right. I'll go ahead with the first one. I move to approve the proposed budget presented as amended.
I second it.
Who's that?
Claire and Nancy.
Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry.
Are there any further questions? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
I would like to make a second motion. I move to establish the permanent tax levy at the rate of 4.6616 per thousand for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Second?
Any questions? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, Chair. I don't think somebody's voting either way. I'm not. Beth, are you voting?
I'm ad hoc. I can't vote.
Oh, sorry. Never mind.
And I'd like to make a third motion. I move to levy the ad valorem taxes for debt service in the amount of $6,500,000.
I second.
Any questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Well, I do want to say thank you, and thank you for the questions. They were easy and hard. I think you guys are and of course I'm elated that it's passed right now too. But you guys are doing a great service to your community, asking the hard questions and really standing up for the community. And I think that that shows from someone who's been here a few months. And I appreciate the rigorous process that this has been. So what happens next? Did you
Well, I
want to say
think
something?
we just, yes, thanks. But there's still some questions out there. So we'll prep those and get those out to you, just so again, you have the background to be able to make sense of this in the community for folks. So we'll work on those pieces and then.
Yes, and then so we'll send you that information. So the next steps is that you guys have now approved the proposed budget as amended. So that's we're gonna have a budget hearing on June 10th, where we open up for the community to make comments, public comments on that. And then once that budget hearing closes, then this budget goes to the full board for adoption. And then once they adopt it, then we're able to send the information to the taxing authorities for the permanent rate and the tax and the levy for the bond. And then we'll also it'll be the scaffolding that you've given us to operate next year. So thank you.
I'm just going to take a second to thank everyone in this room. I think I'm the most tenured budget committee member, somewhere in the 18-year range. And this is, yeah, it's been a while. And I just want to say it's been a number of years since I've been able to breathe through this meeting, where I wasn't leaving saying, I can't ever do this again. So it takes a lot of people with tears and lots of emotions to get where we are. And I just have to thank everybody because it's a time commitment, but even more so, I know it consumed many people here, many people that aren't here for months and years. So I'm just glad we can breathe again getting through this, and thank you.
I absolutely second what Judy said. I've been on the budget committee for a while. And I'm confident in what I'm hearing with the questions and, the answers that you guys are giving. And like, I have trust and faith, that we're in good hands. And that is honestly like, yay. So I have confidence in the budget that we've looked at in the numbers, and I'm very hopeful that next year we can kind of stabilize a little more. So thank you.
I would just like to give a shout out to Kat McNeil, who, she's not here, spent a decade, I think, on this committee, and two very difficult years of working with the board, both boards, and how much, how people put so much of their time and energy and care into this work of this budget. It took a lot out of people, and I know that Kat put in an extraordinary amount of time into it. She didn't get very many thanks. In fact, she had a big parade of people who said she shouldn't even be on the committee, and that was awful. So just shout out to Kat. I guarantee, I hope she's not listening. Hope she's not paying attention to the budget committee. We'll have to talk about that, but I just have to have that said that she put an extraordinary amount of time into this. So appreciate that. I appreciate everybody. So.
Anything else? All right. We're adjourned.
I got some of the questions. Did you? Yeah, I got it. Perfect. Because I do want to, I mean, I think the bus one's an interesting question for us. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Yes, thank you.